When my child instructed me to locate another spot to pass away, claiming I served no purpose anymore, I gathered my possessions as the compliant parent I had consistently remained. 3 days afterward, I found myself in an attorney's chambers, uncovering that my apparently devoted spouse had executed the most prolonged strategy imaginable. Victoria was on the brink of discovering that occasionally, the minor piece evolves into the ruler. If you're viewing this, please subscribe and share your location with me. Allow me to recount how I shifted from a destitute, bereaved spouse to the person in command of everything. Since, darling, this narrative contains more surprises than a plant manufacturing knotted treats. Just 8 weeks prior, I was Margaret Sullivan, a committed partner for over 4 decades and parent to a remarkably unappreciative offspring. When Robert passed from cardiac failure at age 71, I believed my existence was collapsing. Victoria descended upon my sorrow like a scavenger clad in high-end attire, murmuring sympathetically about the hardship this posed for me. "Mother, you simply can't handle this spacious residence by yourself," she remarked, her tone oozing insincere worry. "The staircase, the upkeep, all those recollections. It's unhealthy." I ought to have noticed the scheming beneath her sympathy. Victoria had forever been Robert's preferred, his cherished darling who never erred. When she wed that finance executive, Kevin, and began having offspring, Robert showered affection on them all. In contrast, I was merely the lady who prepared meals, tidied up, and ensured operations ran seamlessly. Following the burial, Victoria grew more persistent regarding my circumstances. She would escort Kevin for household meals where they would trap me with property listings and assisted living flyers. "Mother, these facilities are fantastic. You'd interact with individuals your age, participate in events, avoid burdens." What they implied was no legacy to divide, no troublesome parent to manage. The decisive strike occurred last Tuesday. I'd resided in what Victoria now termed our residence for 6 weeks after Robert's passing, still resting in the spare chamber since I couldn't face clearing out our sleeping area. Victoria showed up without notice alongside Kevin and 2 sizable valises. "Mother, we've reached a conclusion. Kevin secured the advancement, and we must relocate to the city right away. This residence suits us ideally." I gazed at her, failing to grasp fully. "Relocate, but this is my dwelling." Victoria's facade faltered briefly, exposing the icy plotting below. "In truth, Mother, per Father's testament, I received all of it. The property, the holdings, everything. I've permitted your stay here from generosity, but now you must secure your own spot." The statement struck me like a tangible hit. "Victoria, there must be an error surely." "No error. Father recognized I'd safeguard his heritage better than you possibly could. You never grasped finances or ventures. You were simply the spouse. Simply the spouse." 43 years distilled into those 3 terms. That's when she issued the fatal strike. "Locate another place to expire. You have no value now." I assembled my items in a daze. 43 years of union contained in 2 valises and a modest container of pictures. Victoria observed from the entrance, glancing at her timepiece as if I were delaying her for a vital matter. "There's a pleasant elderly housing on Maple Avenue," she suggested with the zeal of someone proposing a respectable eatery. "Quite budget-friendly. I'm certain they have vacancies." Budget-friendly. My offspring was acquiring $33 million, and she was recommending I investigate what amounted to a subsidy program for seniors. Kevin placed my valises into their luxury vehicle with the precision of someone discarding refuse. "Margaret, you'll enjoy regaining your autonomy," he stated, avoiding my gaze. "No further concerns about dwelling repairs or levies on property. No further residence," he intended. As they departed, I observed my dwelling, Robert's dwelling, now Victoria's dwelling, fade in the mirror behind. The sarcasm didn't escape me. I devoted 4 decades transforming that dwelling into a haven, organizing Victoria's celebrations, caring for Robert during his ailment, tending to each element he valued. Now I was being transported to an economical lodge like an undesired visitor who'd lingered too long. The Sunset Lodge was precisely what one anticipates from an establishment billing $49 nightly. Flimsy partitions, even flimsier linens, and flooring that had known superior eras. Victoria presented me with $200 in currency as if compensating a lodging attendant. "This ought to sustain you briefly while you establish yourself," she commented. "I'll arrange for Kevin to deposit funds into your banking once we review Father's documents. Funds from my personal legacy." Once they departed, I perched on the drooping bed and attempted to absorb what had transpired. Within 3 hours, I'd transitioned from mourning spouse to vagrant elder. The individual I'd nurtured, cherished, and forfeited for had abandoned me like an outdated remedy. Yet as I remained in that gloomy lodge chamber, a certain doubt started troubling me. Robert had invariably been precise with his matters, compulsively structured about crucial papers. He displayed the testament to me years earlier, clarifying his desires, ensuring I comprehended all, and I was utterly sure that's not what it declared. Robert had possessed numerous traits, conventional, at times obstinate, sporadically condescending regarding fiscal issues, but he wasn't vicious. The gentleman who'd clasped my hand amid my parents' demise, who delighted me with blossoms each commemoration, wouldn't have abandoned me penniless. The following dawn, I utilized the lodge's wireless to locate Robert's legal counsel, Harrison Fitzgerald, the identical advocate who'd managed our property acquisition and diverse commercial affairs through the years. His workplace was in the city center, a 20-minute transit journey that depleted my scarce funds, but seemed essential. Harrison Fitzgerald was a refined gentleman in his 70s with compassionate gaze behind thin-framed spectacles. When his assistant declared that Mrs. Sullivan was present concerning her spouse's holdings, he appeared truly astonished. "Margaret, dear, I was pondering when you'd visit. I attempted contacting your residence multiple times, but Victoria claimed you were journeying." "Journeying?" That's what my offspring had informed him. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I must inquire about Robert's testament." He seemed bewildered. "Certainly. Didn't Victoria supply you with your duplicate?" I provided her the authentic and various replicas following the recitation. My gut sank. There was a recitation. "Margaret, you were intended to attend. Victoria stated you were overly distressed, that she'd manage all and guarantee you obtained your share." The color left my features as the truth struck. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I was never informed of any recitation. Victoria informed me she acquired all." Harrison Fitzgerald's demeanor changed from bewilderment to distress. He grasped a substantial dossier, his actions abruptly hasty. "Margaret, that's inconceivable. Your spouse's testament is quite precise regarding your share." He extracted a paper. I identified Robert's tidy endorsement at the base. "Attested and authenticated." But as Harrison commenced reciting, I recognized Victoria had fabricated all. I, Robert James Sullivan, of rational intellect and physique, hereby grant to my adored wife Margaret and Sullivan the ensuing, our main abode at 847 Oakwood Lane, encompassing all fixtures and individual items. Moreover, I grant her 70% of all monetary resources, ventures, and balances amounting to roughly $23 million. My thoughts began whirling. $23 million. The abode, 70% of all. Harrison proceeded reciting, his tone becoming graver. "To my offspring, Victoria Sullivan Hayes, I grant $10 million to be maintained in escrow with disbursements commencing on her 45th anniversary, dependent on her conduct toward her parent after my demise." Dependent on her conduct toward me. Robert had anticipated. In some way he'd foreseen precisely what Victoria would attempt. "Mr. Fitzgerald," I murmured. "Victoria informed me I received nothing. She relocated into my abode. She provided me $200 and recommended I seek an elderly center." The senior advocate's features reddened with fury. "Margaret, what Victoria has committed is termed senior mistreatment and deceit. She's perpetrated several serious offenses, but she possessed official papers. She displayed documents to me, falsified, probably, or papers from a prior version. Your spouse revised his testament 6 months prior to his passing, particularly because he was troubled by Victoria's perspective on finances and her feeling of privilege." The space was rotating. All those occasions Victoria had disregarded my views, interrupted me at household suppers, sighed when I attempted to join discussions about their lavish trips or Kevin's commercial transactions. Robert had been observing, assessing, deciding. There's additional Margaret. The escrow stipulation for Victoria explicitly declares that if she neglects to handle you with esteem and honor after my demise, the full 10 million reverts to you as an alternative. I gazed at him in astonishment. Are you indicating I'm indicating your offspring just forfeited $10 million? Her share is now yours too. You're not acquiring 23 million, Margaret. You're acquiring 33 million plus the abode and all private belongings. The sarcasm was so flawless, it was nearly amusing. Victoria had been so keen to seize her share that she'd activated the precise provision intended to shield me from her avarice. What do I proceed with now? I inquired, my tone scarcely stable. Harrison grinned, and for the initial instance, since Robert's passing, I witnessed sincere kindness aimed at me. Now, dear, we contact law enforcement regarding the deceit. And then we contact Victoria and notify her that she's on the verge of experiencing the surprise of her existence. Can she contest this? With what funds? She's on the verge of learning that each balance she believed she commanded truly belongs to you. Every venture, every financial institution, every resource except your abode is suspended awaiting probe of her deceptive actions. I considered Victoria in my abode, likely already organizing updates, purchasing fresh furnishings with funds she assumed were hers. Kevin was likely estimating how the share would impact his asset collection. They had no notion that in roughly 6 hours, their complete reality was going to collapse. Harrison Fitzgerald's workplace turned into the hub for what he joyfully termed Operation Fairness. He reached out to authorities, financial institutions, and a confidential detective while I remained in his cushioned seat, still digesting the extent of Victoria's betrayal. The counterfeit papers are rather advanced, Detective Rodriguez clarified as she examined the phony testament Victoria had presented to me. This wasn't an impulsive offense. Somebody orchestrated this meticulously. You believe Victoria had assistance? I questioned. Nearly definitely. Producing persuasive legal fakes demands particular expertise and links. We'll have to examine if Kevin or an individual in his monetary circle was implicated. Within 2 hours, all balances had been immobilized. Victoria's payment cards connected to what she assumed were her fresh share balances were rejected. The abode services, which she'd already shifted to her title, were halted pending confirmation of possession. My device rang at precisely 3:47 in the afternoon. Victoria's identifier appeared on the display. Mother, where are you located? There's some sort of confusion with the financial balances. They're indicating Daddy's resources are immobilized. Greetings, Victoria. I'm positioned in Harrison Fitzgerald's workplace. You recall him? Daddy's legal counsel, the one who recited the authentic testament to a vacant space while you informed him I was journeying. Quietness, then. Mother, I don't comprehend what you believe you've uncovered, but I uncovered that you're a deceiver and a pilferer. Darling, I also uncovered that your dad was far wiser than either of us comprehended. You don't grasp. I was shielding you from the intricacy of overseeing all that wealth. You've never managed finances. Or I grasp entirely. You counterfeited official papers, perpetrated deceit, and ejected your 67-year-old parent from her own abode because you assumed I was too foolish to observe. Her tone became pointed, frantic. Mother, you're muddled. The sorrow has been overpowering, and evidently someone is exploiting your sentimental condition. The boldness was astonishing. Even exposed outright, Victoria was attempting to control me. Victoria, darling, permit me to explain something for you. Not only did you never acquire anything, but your genuine share, the 10 million your dad granted you, is now mine too, courtesy of a charming provision he added about handling me with honor and esteem. That's unfeasible. Detective Rodriguez is positioned right here if you'd prefer to debate the unfeasibility of deceit accusations with her. The device fell silent. I could nearly perceive Victoria's thoughts accelerating, plotting, hunting for a perspective. Mother, please, can we convene someplace and discuss this sensibly? I'm certain we can resolve something. Oh, we'll certainly be convening shortly at the judicial building when you're charged. You wouldn't venture to file accusations against your own offspring. Something frigid and conclusive solidified in my core. Observe me. I disconnected and glanced at Harrison, who was radiating with endorsement. How soon before she's detained? Detective Rodriguez possesses sufficient proof for an authorization. They'll apprehend her this evening. And Kevin, his monetary records are being summoned. If he contributed to producing those papers, he'll encounter accusations as well. My device vibrated with a message from Victoria. Mother, please refrain from this. Consider the grandchildren. I displayed the communication to Detective Rodriguez, who grinned sternly. Sentimental control, typical conduct for this category of offense. I responded, I'm considering them. Do they merit to witness what occurs when you pilfer from relatives? 20 minutes afterward, Kevin contacted. Margaret, certainly we can settle this confidentially. Victoria committed some unwise choices, but engaging authorities appears extreme. Kevin, did you aid her in counterfeiting those papers? That's not Margaret. You must comprehend the strain Victoria endured. She was concerned about your psychological condition, your capacity to manage substantial amounts of wealth. So that's an affirmation. It wasn't spiteful. She truly thought she was safeguarding you by evicting me from my abode and instructing me to locate a place to expire. Kevin fell silent. Kevin, here's what's going to transpire. You're both going to be detained. You're both going to confront national deceit accusations. And I'm going to be positioned in my abode, observing it all develop. Margaret, please be logical. I was logical for 43 years. It didn't conclude favorably for me. Authorities detained Victoria at 8:30 in the evening while she was dining at Leonard, evidently commemorating her share with Kevin and another pair. Per Detective Rodriguez, she yelled about wrongful detention and insisted on contacting her legal counsel, who proved to be Kevin's leisure companion and lacked expertise in criminal matters. Kevin was detained at his workplace the subsequent morning. The forensic examiner had linked the counterfeit papers to a reproduction firm Kevin's company utilized for generating deceptive venture outlines. Evidently, my relative by marriage possessed quite the unlawful history that Victoria either was unaware of or elected to disregard. I passed my initial evening back in my abode in 43 years, resting in the primary sleeping area. Victoria had already transferred her items into the area, substituting Robert's meticulous arrangement with her disorder of high-fashion garments and costly beauty products. I bundled everything into refused sacks and placed them on the front veranda. Let her retrieve them when she secures release. The abode sensed altered now, not due to Robert's absence, but because I was ultimately perceiving it as mine. For decades, I'd preserved it as Robert's refuge, crafted around his tastes, his requirements, his concept of our lifestyle. Now, surveying with unobstructed vision, I comprehended how minimal of myself had ever been mirrored in these spaces. That was on the verge of alteration. Harrison contacted around midday with developments. Victoria's release is established at $50,000. Since all her balances are immobilized, she'll need to locate another to pay it. What about Kevin? $200,000. Evidently, the magistrate wasn't impressed with his record of monetary offenses. Who knew your relative by marriage had been under scrutiny for investment deceit? I definitely hadn't known. But then, I'd been omitted from most household fiscal talks. Victoria and Kevin had invariably addressed me like a youngster when finances arose, streamlining ideas they presumed I couldn't comprehend. They were on the verge of discovering how much I'd truly comprehended. Harrison, I desire to implement some modifications to the abode. Victoria had builders arranged to refurbish. I'd like to advance with some of those schemes, but with my personal concept. Splendid notion. It's your dwelling now, Margaret. Do whatever brings you joy. What brought me joy, I comprehended, was the concept of reversing every presumption Victoria had made. About my share. She intended to demolish the cooking area, substitute the timber flooring, and transform Robert's workspace into a wine storage. I was going to convert the workspace into a creative workshop and the wine storage schemes into a book collection. My device rang. Unidentified caller. Mrs. Sullivan, this is Janet Cooper from Channel 7 News. We comprehend you're the sufferer of a major senior deceit case involving your offspring. Would you be open to recounting your experience? News was spreading. In a metropolis this large, The detention of a notable finance executive and his spouse for swindling his aged relative by marriage was noteworthy. Miss Cooper, I value your curiosity, but I'm not prepared to issue public declarations. I comprehend this must be challenging, but your account could assist other elders identify indicators of household monetary mistreatment. She made a valid argument. How many other females my age were being controlled by grown children who viewed them as bothersome barriers to legacies? If I chose to recount my account, would I have authority over its presentation? Definitely. We could organize a formal discussion where you'd have endorsement over the ultimate version. I considered Victoria, likely positioned in a detention cell currently, still convinced this was all a confusion she could enchant her way from. Miss Cooper, permit me to respond later. I might have a substantial account to share. After disconnecting, I served myself a portion of the costly vintage Kevin had dispatched us for the holidays. Vintage I was evidently now consuming in my own abode acquired with my own funds, while pondering whether to publicly disgrace my offspring on broadcast. Existence had definitely taken a fascinating direction. The entrance bell sounded at 7 in the morning precisely. Through the pane, I could observe Victoria on my front veranda clad in the prior day's attire and appearing as if she'd matured 5 years in one night. She'd secured release somehow. I unlocked the entrance, but didn't welcome her inside. Mother, please. We must converse. We conversed yesterday. You instructed me to locate a place to expire. I located a place to exist instead. Victoria's gaze was reddened around the edges. Her typical flawless poise entirely fragmented. I committed errors. Dreadful errors. But I'm still your offspring. Are you? Because offspring don't usually counterfeit official papers to pilfer their parents' legacies. I wasn't pilfering. She halted, evidently laboring to locate terms that didn't sound unlawful. You were what, Victoria? I was attempting to shield you from making unwise fiscal choices. You've never overseen large quantities of wealth. Even now, even after detention for deceit, she couldn't confess the reality. In Victoria's thoughts, she was still the sufferer of my irrational demands. Victoria, permit me to disclose something your dad informed me 6 months before his passing. He stated he was concerned about your feeling of privilege, your perspective on wealth, and how you handled individuals you deemed inferior. Her features blanched. Daddy never uttered that. He stated you evoked his sibling, Eleanor. Attractive, enchanting, and utterly unable to consider anyone but herself. He informed me he was altering the testament particularly because he feared what you'd do to me if you possessed authority. That's false. I extracted my device and displayed her an audio clip. In fact, it's not. Your dad captured a visual message clarifying his choice to be activated if you ever disputed the testament or if you handled me badly after his demise. Victoria gazed at the device like it was a venomous creature. He anticipated, darling. He anticipated precisely who you were beneath all that allure. The only element he didn't foresee was how extreme you'd truly proceed. Activate it, she murmured. I pressed the display and Robert's tone filled the dawn atmosphere, distinct, deliberate, and utterly crushing. If you're hearing this, Victoria, it signifies my concerns about your integrity were validated. I hoped I was mistaken. I hoped that my offspring possessed more honor than I presumed. But if Margaret is activating this clip, it signifies you've confirmed me correct in the most awful manner. Victoria collapsed onto the veranda steps as Robert's tone persisted. I devoted 43 years observing your parent forfeit her aspirations, her goals, her self-reliance to care for our household. She labored partial employment to assist fund your education while I developed my enterprise. She delayed her schooling, relinquished professional chances, and invested herself into being the partner and parent she believed we required. The clip persisted for 3 additional minutes, each term meticulously selected. Each phrase a blade slicing through Victoria's rationalizations and self-delusions. By the time you hear this, you'll have learned that handling your parent badly has cost you all. I hope it was valuable. When it concluded, Victoria was weeping. Not the attractive tears she'd employed to control people since youth, but unattractive, shattered cries. He despised me, she murmured. No, Victoria, he cherished you sufficiently to hope you'd disprove him. You elected to affirm him instead. She gazed up at me, cosmetics smearing her features. What occurs now? Now you confront the repercussions of your selections. The deceit accusations, the scrutiny, the public disgrace when this account reaches the media. The media. Channel 7 desires to converse with me about senior monetary mistreatment. I'm considering agreeing. Victoria's features collapsed entirely. Mother, please contemplate what this will inflict on the grandchildren, on Kevin's profession, on our entire household. I am contemplating it. I'm contemplating how you didn't regard any of those elements when you resolved to perpetrate multiple serious offenses. She rose gradually, appearing more aged and more vanquished than I'd ever witnessed. I know you won't accept this, but I never intended for it to escalate this much. I desired the wealth. I desired the assurance, the position. I desired to never have to fret about anything again. For the initial instance since this ordeal commenced, Victoria was speaking honestly. I accept you, darling, but desiring something doesn't validate ruining people to obtain it. She affirmed, tears still streaming. What can I do to rectify this? You can begin by confessing what you did was incorrect. Not misdirected, not shielding, not intricate, incorrect. It was incorrect. It was utterly, inexcusably incorrect. And then you can confront whatever repercussions follow with some honor instead of attempting to control your way from them. Victoria gazed at me for an extended moment, perceiving perhaps for the initial time not the easily influenced parent she'd always known, but the lady who just outsmarted her thoroughly. I merited this, didn't I? Yes, Victoria. You definitely did. 3 days following Victoria's veranda admission, Kevin's parent appeared at my entrance. Eleanor Hayes was everything I'd anticipated, impeccably styled, adorned with gems, and exuding the sort of privilege that only derives from 3 generations of acquired fortune. Margaret, we must address this matter logically. I welcomed her inside, eager to observe what rendition of truth the Hayes household had fabricated to explain their son's serious accusations. Eleanor positioned herself in my sitting area like she was bestowing me a meeting. Kevin committed some unwise selections, clearly, but pursuing him legally appears somewhat retaliatory. Don't you agree? Retaliatory? Your son assisted in pilfering my share and evicted me from my own abode. Kevin was adhering to Victoria's guidance. He didn't comprehend the complete circumstances. The lady was genuinely attempting to fault my offspring for her son's unlawful conduct. I had to respect the nerve. Mrs. Hayes, Kevin produced falsified official papers. That's not adhering to someone's guidance. That's collusion to perpetrate deceit. Kevin's legal counsel believes we can achieve an agreement that advantages all. You regain your abode. Victoria confronts suitable repercussions, and Kevin evades the exposure of a hearing. Suitable repercussions. As if Victoria's offenses were a slight courtesy breach. What sort of agreement? Eleanor grinned, evidently convinced she'd discovered an opportunity. Kevin's household is ready to reimburse you for your trouble. Let's say $2 million in return for withdrawing the accusations against Kevin. $2 million to pardon the gentleman who'd assisted in pilfering $33 million from me. Mrs. Hayes, your son contributed to a plot that deprived me of everything I possessed. You think $2 million compensates that? Margaret, be practical. Kevin has a profession, offspring, a standing to uphold. Imprisoning him benefits no one. It benefits fairness. Eleanor's refined exterior fractured slightly. Fairness? You're ruining several households over wealth you'd never have known how to oversee anyway. There it was. The identical patronizing demeanor that had tainted my connection with Victoria. In their realm, I was merely the assistants who'd overstepped. Mrs. Hayes, I believe we're concluded here. Margaret, please rethink. $5 million ultimate proposal. $5 million to permit Kevin to depart unscathed. The sum was enormous, but the principle was inflexible. My response is no. Eleanor rose, her poise fully reinstated. Very well. But you should know that Kevin's legal group has uncovered some intriguing details about your spouse's commercial methods. It would be regrettable if that emerged publicly during the hearing. The menace was evident, but I experienced no dread, only interest. What sort of details? The sort that might make you reassess who the true offender in the circumstances was. After she departed, I contacted Harrison promptly. Margaret, whatever they believe they've uncovered, it doesn't alter the facts of Victoria and Kevin's offenses. But could it influence the case? Possibly, if they can obscure the issues sufficiently, generate uncertainty about Robert's integrity or commercial methods, it might affect a panel. I considered Robert, about our union, about all the secrets that might be concealed in 43 years of joint existence. Harrison, I desire to know all about Robert's enterprise. Every transaction, every collaboration, every possible anomaly. Margaret, are you certain? Sometimes the history is better undisturbed. The Hayes household is menacing to tarnish Robert's legacy to shield their unlawful son. I'd prefer to know the facts first. That evening, I positioned myself in Robert's workspace, my workspace now, and commenced examining his dossiers methodically. Robert had been scrupulously structured, every paper dated and classified. But as I delved further into his commercial records, I began discovering elements that didn't quite align. Disbursements to facade organizations, advisory charges that appeared exorbitant, collaborations with entities that seemed to exist solely on documents. By midnight, I'd uncovered something that altered everything I believed I knew about my spouse. The confidential Detective Harrison suggested was a keen-sighted lady named Carol Chin, who focused on monetary offenses. She devoted 6 hours in Robert's workspace, capturing images of papers and constructing what she termed the authentic depiction of my spouse's commercial domain. Mrs. Sullivan, your spouse was operating an advanced funds cleaning scheme through his advisory company. We're discussing millions in unlawful dealings over the past 10 years. The disclosure struck me like a tangible impact. That's unfeasible. Robert was the most upright gentleman I knew. I'm apologetic, but the proof is compelling. He was cleansing funds for structured crime groups using his valid enterprise as a cover. I gazed at the papers scattered across Robert's desk. Bills for assistance never provided. Advisory agreements with organizations that didn't exist. Disbursement timelines that matched known unlawful actions. How long has this persisted? Based on these records, at least 12 years, likely longer. 12 years. While I was organizing social gatherings and participating in benevolent events, my spouse was enabling criminal ventures. Mrs. Sullivan, there's more. The $10 million Robert granted Victoria, that wealth came straight from cleansed funds. If the Federal Bureau uncovers this, they'll confiscate all his gains from unlawful activity. The space began rotating. All, the abode, the ventures, everything. Unless what? Carol appeared uneasy. Unless Victoria and Kevin's legal group already knows about this and is intending to utilize it as pressure. If they alert the Federal Bureau about your spouse's offenses, they might be able to bargain exemption in return for collaboration. My offspring and her spouse weren't merely pilferers. They were wielding a devastating weapon over me. What are my choices? Legally, you could reach out to the Federal Bureau yourself, disclose voluntarily, and hope for mercy. You'd forfeit most of the wealth, but you might retain the abode. And if I don't, Victoria and Kevin's legal representatives will probably disclose this details tactically. You'll forfeit all anyway, but you'll also confront potential accusations for unwittingly gaining from unlawful activity. I considered Eleanor Hayes's complacent assurance, her certainty that I'd accept their agreement proposal. They'd known about Robert's offenses throughout. Carol, how did they discover this? Kevin's a finance executive. He'd have identified the patterns in your spouse's monetary records. The query is, what are they planning to do with this details? My device rang. Victoria's identifier. Mother, we must convene tonight. There are elements you need to know about Daddy that alter all. I already know, Victoria. Quietness. Then you know what? I know about the funds cleaning. I know about the unlawful links. I know that everything your dad granted us is contaminated. Mother, hear me attentively. Kevin's legal representatives have been communicating with the Federal Bureau. They're open to letting us renegotiate our circumstances. What sort of renegotiation? Kevin obtains exemption in return for supplying details about Daddy's unlawful network. You get to retain $5 million and the abode. The remainder goes to the authorities. And you? The deceit accusations vanish. We all depart from this chaos. It was ingenious in a psychopathic manner. Victoria had converted my ethical triumph into her tactical edge. Victoria, you're requesting me to assist you gain from your offenses by exploiting Daddy's offenses. I'm requesting you to be pragmatic. The option is forfeiting all and possibly confronting accusations yourself. I surveyed Robert's workspace, perceiving it distinctly for the initial time. The costly furnishings, the uncommon volumes, the artwork assortment, all of it acquired with tainted wealth. I require time to contemplate. Mother, the Federal Bureau meeting is tomorrow dawn. Kevin's legal counsel needs a response tonight. After disconnecting, I positioned in the obscurity of Robert's workspace, encircled by the proof of his dual existence. 43 years of union to an unknown, an offspring who'd acquired more than wealth from her dad. She'd acquired his skill for betrayal. But she'd committed one critical error. She'd undervalued who I was when cornered. I grasped the device and contacted Carol Chin. Carol, how swiftly can you arrange a meeting with the Federal Bureau? I have an account to share with them, and I think they're going to find it highly intriguing. Federal agent Sarah Martinez appeared precisely like what a casting director would select for a national investigator. Earnest, astute, and fully resistant to allure. She positioned across from me in Harrison's meeting space, capturing our discussion and noting with automatic accuracy. Mrs. Sullivan, you comprehend that by disclosing voluntarily, you're possibly admitting to gaining from unlawful gains? I comprehend, but I'd prefer to inform you the facts than permit my offspring and her spouse control the circumstances to their benefit. I outlined all. Robert's concealed enterprise. Victoria's deceit plot, Kevin's fakes, and the coercion attempt disguised as an agreement proposal. Your offspring believes she can exchange details about your spouse's offenses for exemption from her own accusations. That's precisely what she believes, and she thinks I'll cooperate because I'm fearful of forfeiting all. Agent Martinez grinned for the initial time. Are you fearful, Mrs. Sullivan? Agent Martinez, 2 weeks prior, I was a mourning spouse resting in an economical lodge. Today, I'm positioned here voluntarily admitting to national agents about my deceased spouse's unlawful venture. Fear is no longer my main sentiment. What is? Pure solidified fury at being controlled by people who undervalued my intellect for decades. Agent Martinez's grin broadened. Mrs. Sullivan, would you be open to wearing a recording device? 3 hours afterward, I was positioned in my sitting area with a capturing tool attached to my torso, awaiting Victoria and Kevin to arrive for what they assumed was a capitulation meeting. They wrapped at precisely 8 in the evening, both attired like they were participating in a commercial supper. Kevin carried a portfolio that likely contained exemption packs and agreement documents. Mother, you appear improved than you have in weeks, Victoria remarked, brushing my cheek as if nothing had transpired. I feel improved. Clarity has that impact. Kevin unveiled his portfolio with the precision of someone who'd performed similar discussions before. Margaret, our legal representatives have arranged this very advantageously for you. You keep the abode, $5 million in untainted resources, and full exemption from any accusations related to Robert's actions. Untainted resources. That's a curious expression. Victoria directed Kevin a cautionary glance. Mother, the crucial element is that we're all shielded. The history remains concealed and we all advance. What about the $33 million Robert truly granted me? Mother, that wealth is contaminated. It can't be detached from Daddy's unlawful actions. Accepting $5 million is the optimal result feasible. And you two? What do you obtain from this setup? Kevin inclined forward, his assurance returning. We get to leave this regrettable confusion behind us. Victoria's accusations vanish. My standing stays undamaged and our household can recover. Confusion. He was still labeling serious deceit a confusion. Kevin, assist me in comprehending something. When precisely did you uncover Robert's unlawful actions? What do you imply? I imply, did you know about the funds cleaning when you wed Victoria? Or did you uncover it lately when you were scheming to pilfer my share? Kevin and Victoria swapped looks. Margaret, I don't think that's pertinent to our present discussion. In fact, I think it's highly pertinent because if you knew about Robert's offenses and remained silent, that makes you a collaborator after the event. And if you only uncovered them while committing your own offenses, that makes you extraordinarily unfortunate. Victoria's poise was beginning to fracture. Mother, what are you implying? I'm implying the fact that you two have been orchestrating this for months, possibly years. The falsified testament, the funds cleaning discovery, even Kevin's links to document falsifiers. None of this was impromptu. That's absurd. Is it? Agent Martinez finds it quite believable. The hue drained from both their features. Agent Martinez. Kevin murmured. National Bureau. She's been highly intrigued by my account about organized senior mistreatment, deceit, and coercion. Particularly the segment where you attempted to coerce me with my deceased spouse's offenses. Kevin rose suddenly, grasping for his portfolio. Margaret, this discussion is concluded. In fact, Kevin, I think it's just commencing. Agent Martinez and 2 additional national agents entered my sitting area as Victoria and Kevin remained immobilized in position. The portfolio Kevin had been grasping for was seized promptly along with both their devices. Victoria Sullivan Hayes and Kevin Hayes, you're detained for collusion to perpetrate electronic deceit, senior mistreatment, and attempted coercion of a national witness. Victoria turned to me with a look of total disloyalty. Mother, how could you inflict this on your own household? The same way you could counterfeit official papers and pilfer my share, darling, accept my way as lawful. As the agents restrained them, Kevin attempted one final frantic maneuver. Margaret, you don't comprehend what you've executed. There are individuals linked to Robert's enterprise who won't value national scrutiny. You've placed yourself in peril. Agent Martinez halted in reciting their entitlements. Mr. Hayes, are you menacing a national witness? I'm alerting her about the truth of her circumstances. Fragments of honor my household provided me. That lady might have felt compelled to pardon Victoria, to reconstruct a connection based on remorse and custom, but that lady was vanished. Sarah, arrange a meeting with Victoria's legal counsel, not to reconcile, but to clarify something. What sort of thing? I want Victoria to comprehend that her actions had repercussions beyond legal penalty. I want her to know that she ruined our connection permanently and that her offspring will mature knowing why their parent went to incarceration. That seems severe. Good. It's intended to be severe. Victoria made mature choices that harmed people she was supposed to cherish. She doesn't get to evade the sentimental repercussions just because she's composed some incarceration messages. Sarah noted in her cushioned collection. And the grandchildren. Victoria's solicited supervised encounters with them. My connection with Victoria's offspring will be based on their selections when they're mature, not their parents' recovery efforts. The entrance bell sounded. Through the pane, I could observe a transport vehicle with a large bundle. Must be the fresh furnishings for the workshop, I informed Sarah. The creative workshop had been my preferred refurbishment project. Robert's former retreat was now a luminous, spacious area where I was rediscovering my passion for artwork, something I'd forsaken when I wed and assumed the role of supportive partner and parent. Margaret, can I inquire something private? Of course. Do you ever remorse how this all unfolded? The incarceration penalties, the media focus, the permanent household separation. I pondered the query while endorsing for my transport. 6 months prior, I'd been unseen, a bereaved spouse with no wealth, no dwelling, and no prospects. Today, I was a wealthy benefactor with an organization, a film agreement, and a purpose that extended far beyond my own endurance. Sarah, my offspring attempted to pilfer everything I possessed and leave me vagrant. My relative by marriage produced falsified papers and menaced me with coercion. They showed me precisely who they were when they assumed I was powerless to halt them. But they're still household. No, they're still genetics. Household are the people who shield you when you're susceptible, not the people who exploit your susceptibility for gain. Sarah sealed her collection, content with my reply. Besides, I added, look what I became when I stopped permitting them to define my value. After Sarah departed, I strolled through my abode. Really my abode now, adorned according to my preference, organized around my priorities. In the creative workshop, I revealed my latest artwork, a personal depiction of a lady standing in bright illumination. Her features directed toward the horizon. The lady in the artwork looked nothing like the mourning bereaved spouse who'd bundled her existence into 2 valises 6 months prior. This lady looked potent, self-sufficient, fearless. She looked like someone who'd learned that the optimal retaliation isn't equalization. It's becoming everything your adversaries never believed you could be. Outside, the sun was descending behind trees I'd planted myself in ground that belonged to me, on land I'd defended through wit and bravery rather than acquired through union or birth. Tomorrow, I'd continue constructing the existence I'd selected rather than the existence others had schemed for me. And if Victoria desired to reconstruct a connection with this lady, she'd better bring a lot more than incarceration messages and empty regrets. She'd better bring a complete change, one that matched my own. Thanks for hearing. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your account in the comments. Your perspective matters.